Hello everyone, this is Aimsell and welcome back to another Arcane Odyssey video, and today I'm going to be analysing and showing you strategies and tactics you can use to crush metamages in Arcane Odyssey. Now, to be honest, this entirely depends on the skill of both users. However, generally speaking, if you have a practice partner and you practice these tactics and concepts against a mage friend, and you get very used to how a mage generally plays, the chances of you being able to defeat the average mage is definitely in your favour. However, if you're going up against a mage who's experienced in combat, then it's going to be a lot harder, obviously. And like I said, this will work on the average mage as long as you don't panic or mess up, but a decently skilled mage will realise and create countermeasures for them, etc. So before we jump into certain strategical concepts and tactics, we have to first establish our DPS, as our entire playstyle will practically be built around the amount of damage we can deal to our opponents. So me and this metamage did a DPS test run where we both just stood still right in front of each other, and after the count of 3 we just attempted to see who can kill the other person first without anyone moving, and I can barely kill him before he kills me. But that doesn't mean I actually have a higher DPS, since he also has a lower amount of health, and I know a lot of keyboard warriors in the comments will be like, oh, but my mage build is blah 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 and has 1.5k health or some shit, which may be true, but at the cost of your increased health, your damage has also been reduced, and as much as you want to argue that it hasn't been reduced by that much, or you'll still shred me with your high damage, it still balances out roughly. So in the same scenario, I could probably still kill you before you kill me, since your damage has been reduced as compensation for your higher health. I want to try and answer as many what ifs in this video as I can, since I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments, or a lot of butthurt mages in the comments, saying I'd get shredded by a real metamancer in under a second, which clearly isn't the case, since I've 1v1 many metamancers before and I haven't won all of them, but it's never been easy at all for my opponents, let's just say that in the least. Another thing that some people might point out is that, oh, why is he not using Alt-R Explosion first and then blasting me with pulsars? And that's because we already tested that out, and he actually does a lower DPS doing that compared to him applying me with acid first and then doing Alt-R Explosion, because the corrosive debuff increases all attack damage by something like 20%, and that is also another reason why metal acid is just stupidly ridiculously strong, because metal is already fucking dangerous enough, and making it 20% stronger using acid is just almost illegal at this point. It shouldn't be allowed. But that test was him without damage aura, and when we did the tests again but with him using damage aura, he was able to kill me first about 7 times out of 10. So his DPS is a little bit higher than mine with aura activated. So far already with these tests, I've already debunked a lot of YouTube commenters saying shit like, oh, but when he does this combo, he might do this X amount of damage, but then I'll do this, and I'll do 900 damage instantly and shred him and I'll be fine. No, you won't. In fact, half of the time you may actually already be dead by the time you think you've finished your magical metal combo, because you just understand fundamentally that your class is just completely superior to any other class in the game. So on to combat tactics. The first one that I want to talk about is what I like to call shadow movement, and that is the efficient movement without making any unnecessary movements in irrelevant directions. You're basically just shadowing your enemy and always staying within his vicinity to ensure all your attacks will hit most of the time, so you can actually put your DPS into effect here, like what we've just discussed earlier. This is probably one of the most important things to understand when fighting mages, because due to the mage's insane AoE, you're never going to realistically be able to dodge a mage's attacks or explosions, so your best bet is to stay as close as you can, tank the mage's hits, or ideally block them while also dealing as much damage as you can, and hit them as fast as possible and as hard as you can. The next thing I want to talk about is the Komodo Saber, and this is a very useful weapon against mages because it is almost the perfect countermeasures to pulsars, because in a scenario where a mage fires a pulsar at you, you can instantly just evade the pulsar's pulsing AoE using the teleport slash technique, while also simultaneously counter-attacking the mage, dealing a good chunk of damage. Also, it's very useful if a mage likes to be annoying and is just casually floating in the air or double jumping when you jump, as you can simply just aim at the mage and you'll probably be able to hit the mage from a distance and also deal a decent amount of damage. Another weapon that I suppose is quite useful, but one that I don't use, is the Silent Blades, as the Beast Instinct skill is very strong, and due to the iframes you simply just cannot really get hurt while the skill is active. However, the one downside, and this is the reason why I don't use it to this, is that you're vulnerable for a second after the skill is finished, and you're just standing still in the middle of where the skill was active, so your opponent can easily just preemptively plant or charge an AoE just right there. So as soon as your skill's done, you're just fucked unless you do not block fast enough, which a lot of people might not be able to do. So as concisely as possible, your general game plan is to basically shadow the mage as closely as possible, generally using AoE skills from any strong weapon to hit them as they attempt to fire a spell, and if you can read their spells and they fire a pulsar at you, switch to the Komodokai Saber and use teleport slash skill to instantly evade the pulsars while simultaneously counterattacking and dealing damage. Also shadow them even to the air, so like when they suddenly jump, you also jump and hit them with an AoE while in the air, and if they double jump, then you can use a teleport slash again to also hit them while they're higher in the air than you are. But playing perfectly might not always be the reason why you'd win, because a lot of mages get very careless and don't try to involve any sort of skill or strategy because their class itself vastly outclasses any other currently, and is basically just fundamentally stronger than any other class baseline in the game right now. So when they fight classes that differ from mages, they don't really expect any sort of challenge due to the fact that a lot of them have probably never had a problem killing any other class, especially in a PvP scenario. However, when one fights a different class that is experienced and knows how to fight a mage, they panic sometimes and they go on the defensive, which is the worst thing a mage can possibly do, because a mage practically has 0 defense with their HP. Who the fuck just messaged me there? Their only asset is their attack damage and range, so a mage panicking and going defensive is basically them asking to get fucked. So that's your general game plan. I'm going to be analysing a few of my battles with this metamage using metal acid and explaining what went on and what I was doing in each one, as well as trying to understand what my opponent was doing too. So this was probably one of my cleanest kills, and I think that's simply because I was shadowing him almost perfectly, and I was using all my weapon skills almost perfectly as well, timing them all correctly, like in all the correct scenarios. For example, like later on right here, as you can see, I just used the Komodokai Saber perfectly, hitting everything. And he couldn't quite get any hits because I was almost perfectly just outside of his range at all times. And as soon as he would fire the spell, I would jump in and shadow him and basically just AoE him. This was definitely one of my most brutal losses because I just simply couldn't shadow him efficiently enough. I didn't get close enough to get using AoE, and even though our DPS is similar, he was able to just attack harder and faster than I could because I lost visibility of him. It might have been a bit closer if I was actually able to get the first hit in, but you know, either way, he's just really strong. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy it, then hit that like button and comment down below what you think. And if you enjoy my content, I try to upload as often as I can. Then hit that subscribe button and then put on the bell so you don't miss any uploads. And yeah, I think I'll see you all later.